Welcome to this video on function notation. In this, we're going to talk about how to go from function notation to a graph. So let's say your instructions were, I'm sorry about that. Let's say your instructions were, let me pick up a pen, were to graph f of x equals x minus 3. So remember that when we're talking about function notation, really this is just a way to say y. This is the same as if I asked you to graph y equals x minus 3. So you pick some values for x. And typically you make a table. When we did this for y equals x minus 3, we would have made a table. We would have picked some values, -2, 0, 2. That should be enough for now. So what y will be is whatever f of -2 is. And in a previous video, we talked about if f of x equals x minus 3, really it means that whatever we replace this x with, I replace this x with. So I'm saying I want to replace x with -2 for that first line in my table. F of -2 equals -2 minus 3. That gives me a -5. Then I find f of 0 will be the y that goes with x is 0. F of 0. I replace the x with 0. So I get 0 minus 3. See, the x got replaced with 0. And that gives me a -3. And f of x equals x minus 3 for x is 2 will be f of 2 equals 2 minus 3, which is a -1. So f of 2 equals -1 is what I just found. So the points I have for my graph are here. I have this x coordinate with the y that calculated from it. This x, this y. This x, this y. So if I make a list of points, my points are -2, -5, 0, -3, because when I put in x as 0, I got y as -3, and when I put in x as 2, I got y as -1. I plot these points. The first one, -2, -5. I go to 0, 0, I go to the left 2, and then I go down 5. This will be the point -2, -5. The point 0, -3. I start at the origin. 0 means I do not move left or right. I just move down 3 for the -3 for the y coordinate. And then the next point, 2, -1, start at the origin. X is 2, so I go 2 to the right. Y is -1, so I go down 1. And I can actually connect these dots because it's a function and it's not just a list of points. It came from an equation. I get essentially this line here. And that would go on forever in both directions. Okay, so that's how we would graph a function. Let's try another one. That's a little trickier with the function notation. Let me see if I can erase this. There we go. All right, let's try another one. Oh, let's give our function a different name. Remember, this is just a function name. And this is nice because if I always used y for my function, if this was always a y, I wouldn't know how to tell one equation from other. They wouldn't have different names. It'd be kind of like having multiple children and naming them all the same. So we're going to do y equals x squared plus 1. Or g of x equals x squared plus 1. And if your instructions are to graph, we're going to pick some points for x. So your instructions are to graph this. And I'm going to pick some points. Now, since this one isn't just a line, this 2 on the top, I do want to make sure I pick some negatives and some positives. The techniques for exactly picking which x's you use vary, but I'm going to use my -2, -1. This time I'm going to do 5 points, 0, 1, and 2. And so y will be g of -2 when x is 2. And that's, remember, this x here. So you have to be careful with the negatives because whatever x is, you square it. If you do not put that in parentheses, you get -4, but the answer for this piece should be a 4. You should get 5. So on your graph, you should have one of the points you're going to have, and I guess I'll write our points over here, is you found you're going to have the point -2, 5. That's going to be a point on your graph. So -2 is start at the origin, move 2 to the left, and go up 5. That's your -2, 5. Actually, I should have written that there. That's -2, 5. That's one of your points. Now, when x is -1, y is g of -1, which means I take the -1, which is what my x is, and I square it because that's what my instructions say to do, plus 1, that will be a 2. -1 squared is a positive 1. So now I have the point -1, go over, x is -1, go over 1, and go up 2. So this is the point -1, 2. G of 0 equals 0 squared plus 1. 0 squared is 0, so I get a 1. So I have the point x is 0, y is 1. That's going to be right there. That's the point 0, 1. Then when x is 1, y is g of 1, which means 1 squared plus 1, which will be a 2. So I have the point 1, 2. X is 1, y is 2, so I went over 1 to the right, up 2. And then g of 2 is 2 squared plus 1, which equals 5. So I would have the point x is 2 from here, y is 5 from what I calculated. I start at the origin, I go 2 to the right, and then I go up 5 right there. And if you've done anything with quadratics before, parabolas, that's what this is. You would connect these dots. It's a little tricky to connect the dots on the screen, but you go about like that. So that is how you would graph from function notation. You pick some x's. So if I had just asked you to find g of -2, this right here is what you would have done. If I ask you to graph, you got to pick a bunch of values and graph them. All right, so that's the second of our videos on function notation and using them, and I'll see you next time.